So our goal right now is really just to get, similar to the last shot, just get two different frames looking good. And then we'll essentially go through and clean up everything in between there. So first off, we'll get the background set up good. I'm just going to go ahead and scale this up, rotate this in, and kind of get this in a decent position. We can always tweak it more later. We want that horizon line, to be somewhere relevant to where it would actually be in the world. Something like that. And then from here, we'll go ahead and just kind of scrub through here. I'm going to go ahead and turn on our view show overlays over here so that we can see the curve. So we can actually see where it's going to go. And right now, I think the jet gets a little too small down here. It's a little too far back. So a cheat that we can do is simply set the curve's pivot point to be somewhere right in here. So to do that, what I'm going to do is select the jet, go into edit mode up here, go to mesh, and then snap, and then we'll do cursor to selected. It's going to snap the cursor there. I'm going to back into object mode, go back to my curve, and then simply do a object set origin, and then we'll do origin to 3D cursor. So now what happens whenever we scale this, it's now being somewhere a little bit more relevant to where our center of our jet is. So now when I scale this down, it'll still roughly stay in the same spot in terms of the first frame, but now essentially we can kind of tweak this so that all these in-between frames are a little bit better. So I'm just kind of tweaking this, scaling this, we don't want to go too small here, but somewhere and somewhere like this. And essentially if we come in here, we now need to work on our rotation. So I will select this. So we can't actually animate this. We can animate this, but we have the second controller here that we're wanting to put our animation on for our rotation. So what I'll do here is simply go to the frame 100 and just get that initial frame set up so it's going to be coming in from that barrel roll. So something like this. I'll do I insert rotation. And then from here, what we can do is simply go along the path here. And then somewhere right in there where we need to get a little bit more of an arc. So right in the center, I rotation. And then we'll kind of follow this back until it goes past the camera and tweak it again. So maybe something like this, I rotation. And we'll just kind of play it back to see what it looks like. So at this point, we can kind of exaggerate this a little bit. So right now, we want this to be taking up a lot of the frame over here. So we want this to hug the top left corner, and then down here, this will hug the bottom left corner. So what we'll do is just come in here into edit mode and we'll adjust the curve. So not really tweaking the position at all on the jet in this one. We're simply just doing a little bit of curve tweaking to get it to go where we want it to go. And we can always come back here. I'm going to tweak the camera a little bit to get this centered a little bit more. So something like that. And we can always kind of push this out a little bit more. So it's going to hug this bottom right corner a little bit better and actually go a little bit closer to the camera. And then we'll just kind of continue playing this back until we get something that looks to it like what we want. So that's looking pretty good right now. I think that we can turn back on our object constraint. So we'll just select our camera here. We'll go to our object constraint and we'll turn back on copy rotation so that we get that little bit of like ambient movement happening here so we can judge this a little bit better. And at this point, I'll just kind of turn off this. I'll control spacebar to go into full frame mode so I can see this a little bit better. And at this point, that's looking pretty decent. So something else that we can do is add a little bit more of a camera shake on this. And currently, the only way really to control the camera shake is with that ambient noise pattern that we have with our cube right here. So what we're going to do is just kind of exaggerate this, and then we can use our influence on our camera to kind of tone that down. So I'm just going to go into my noise here. We'll just kind of play with scale. We'll do something like 5, and that's going to kind of really amp it up. Maybe something like 10 actually. And we'll do something like 0.3. So I'm doing 5 and 0.3 there. Not bad. We'll kind of play around with the other two. So 5 and 0.3. So it's getting really ambient right there. So we'll do 5.3, 5.3, and then 5 and then 0.3 again. So it really feels like the camera's moving here, right? So what we want to do now is kind of tone it back. So we can go to our influence. I'm going to tone this back overall and get it to a point where it's kind of good overall. So something like maybe 0.1, maybe even lower than that, like something like 0.05. There we go. And then what we can do here is simply keyframe, like somewhere like right here, right before. We'll right click, insert keyframe. We'll go over 1, 2 frames, crank that up, right click, insert frame, and then 1, 2, maybe even 3. Then we'll go back down to that 0.1. So now whenever it goes past the second time, it's going to kind of get knocked off its axis a little bit. And then we can kind of just tweak this. So bring this out a little bit more so it kind of gets hit and then kind of fades back to normal. I'm going to go ahead and hide my cube. Something like that. And again, we could tweak this all day long. I'm going to kind of try to minimize the tweaking here. And then what we can do is simply we'll take these keyframes, copy, and then we'll paste them right around here. But we want that peak to be right when it goes by, something like that. So I just so happen to get it pretty good on the first one. And then I'll just tweak this a little bit. Just a little bit of faster. There we go. Not too bad. And then we want to make sure that on the camera shakes, the sky is going to hold up. We're not going to see any of the HDRI in there. So we'll go ahead and scale this up a little bit. Great. Looking good. So the aspect ratio, again, in our template, it's not the 21:9 aspect ratio. So I'm going to turn that on to make sure I can see everything. And I'm going to actually full frame this by using Control Space to see this a little bit better. And overall, it's turned out really good. So we'll go ahead and do the second angle in the next chapter. But first, we're going to just render this out. So we'll do render, and then we'll do shot C, and then version, I'm on version 1 here, shot C, and then version 1 dot. And then we'll do JPEG. Quality all the way up, so same exact routine as we've been doing, and then simply I will render out either using render animation, or I'm going to do the render motion blur sequence. Great, so our animation's ready, so we'll just simply view that by render, view animation. And there we go, I'll play this back a couple different times. Great, and then we'll work on the second camera angle in the next shot.